Keanu Reeves quietly boards a first-class flight, dressed modestly and going unnoticed, at first. But things take an unexpected turn when an arrogant passenger mocks him, completely unaware of who he really is. What happens next leaves everyone on board in stunned silence. Stay tuned, since this just might be something everyone should be looking out for. Also, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. And if you enjoy stories like this, please subscribe for more inspiring content. Let's begin. The Hartsfield-Jackson Atlanta International Airport was a sprawling, buzzing hive of activity. Travelers hurried past in all directions, dragging wheeled suitcases and balancing overstuffed carry-ons. The air was thick with the hum of announcements echoing overhead, the rumble of jet engines outside, and the murmur of hurried conversations. Among the crowd, a man stood in the first-class check-in line, oddly still amidst the chaos. He wore a plaid shirt tucked loosely into worn jeans, the fabric faded from years of use. His boots bore scuffs and scratches that told stories of countless miles walked, and his simple backpack sagged with weight. A baseball cap shaded his face, and a pair of dark sunglasses obscured his eyes, lending an air of mystery to his otherwise humble appearance. This man was Keanu Reeves, traveling incognito. Keanu's understated presence was deliberate. He valued his privacy, especially when traveling alone. Fame, as he had learned over the years, could often be a burden. This disguise was his shield, a way to blend into the crowd and avoid the attention that usually followed him. He stood quietly, hands in his pockets, exuding a calm that contrasted sharply with the frantic energy around him. Behind him in line stood Aaron Whitaker, a man who embodied ambition and confidence. Aaron's suit was perfectly tailored, the fine fabric catching the light. His polished leather shoes clicked sharply against the airport tiles as he shifted impatiently. His cologne, a bold, expensive scent, lingered in the air, and his gold watch glinted under the fluorescent lights. Aaron was a corporate executive based in Chicago, on his way to Los Angeles for a series of high-stakes meetings. To him, first class wasn't just a luxury, it was a status symbol, a declaration of his success. He glanced at Keanu, his eyes narrowing. The man's appearance didn't fit Aaron's image of a first-class passenger. Aaron leaned slightly forward, his voice just loud enough for Keanu to hear. "Well," he said with a smirk, "looks like they'll let anyone into first class these days." Keanu turned his head slightly, his expression unreadable behind the sunglasses. "Life is full of surprises," he replied simply, his voice calm and even. The remark caught Aaron off guard. He had expected a defensive or embarrassed reaction, something to confirm his assumption that the man in front of him didn't belong. Instead, the stranger's response was disarming in its serenity. Aaron frowned, unsettled but unwilling to let it show. As the line moved forward, Aaron tried again. "Not to sound rude," he said, his tone laced with condescension, "but first class is a bit exclusive. Most people don't just stumble into it." Keanu adjusted the strap of his backpack. "First class is just a seat," he said. "It doesn't change who you are." Aaron stared at him, his smirk faltering. For the first time, he felt a flicker of discomfort. Who was this man? The boarding process was its usual blend of chaos and efficiency. Aaron walked confidently down the jet bridge, his posture straight and his pace brisk. He had worked hard to earn his place in first class, and he wasn't shy about showing it. But as he approached his seat, his confidence wavered. Seated next to his window-side seat was the same man from the check-in line. Aaron's jaw tightened, and he let out a soft chuckle of disbelief. "You've got to be kidding me," he muttered under his breath. Keanu looked up briefly, offering a polite smile. "Looks like we're seatmates." Aaron sighed dramatically, shoving his carry-on into the overhead bin with a little more force than necessary. He dropped into his seat, crossing his arms and leaning back, as if the universe had conspired against him. The flight attendant approached, offering pre-departure drinks. Aaron ordered champagne with an air of practiced sophistication. "Something to match the exclusivity of first class," he said, casting a pointed glance at Keanu. When it was Keanu's turn, he requested water. Aaron couldn't resist a comment. "Water? In first class? Really?" Keanu took the bottle from the flight attendant, his movements unhurried. Sometimes simplicity is enough, he said, unscrewing the cap. Aaron let out a scoffing laugh. That's what people say when they don't know how to enjoy the finer things. Keanu turned his gaze toward the window, his expression as calm as ever. Or maybe, he said, it's what people say when they already have what matters. As the plane ascended into the clouds, Aaron's irritation grew. He wasn't used to being dismissed so easily, especially by someone he perceived as his inferior. Determined to assert himself, he struck up a conversation. "So," he said, turning toward Keanu, "what do you do for a living?" Keanu adjusted his backpack under the seat and replied, "I work in film." Aaron raised an eyebrow. "Film, huh? Independent stuff, commercials? Or is this one of those aspiring actor situations?" Keanu gave a small smile. "Something like that." Aaron laughed, shaking his head. "It's a tough industry. Not everyone has what it takes to make it big, you know?" Keanu didn't respond, letting the comment hang in the air. Aaron pressed on. "You know, life's a lot like this first-class cabin. You work hard, you earn your spot, and then you enjoy it. But some people—" He trailed off, his eyes flicking to Keanu's backpack. "Some people just get lucky." This time, Keanu turned to face him. His voice was steady, his tone measured. "Luck or hard work, we all end up in the same place when the flight lands, don't we?" The remark hit harder than Aaron expected. For a moment, he was silent, unsure of how to respond. Around them, passengers had begun to take notice. Subtle glances were exchanged, and a few heads nodded in quiet agreement with Keanu's words. Aaron forced a laugh, but it sounded hollow. "That's cute, philosophical even, but the real world is about levels. Some of us are just higher up." Keanu leaned back in his seat, his expression unchanging. "Maybe. But the higher up you go, the more important it is to stay grounded." The plane hummed steadily at cruising altitude. Aaron sat back in his plush first-class seat, but for the first time, the luxury didn't feel as satisfying. Something about the man beside him, his unshakable calm, his unassuming simplicity, gnawed at him. Aaron prided himself on being in control, but Keanu's steady demeanor seemed to erode that control piece by piece. As the in-flight service began, Aaron leaned toward Keanu, unable to resist another jab. "You know," he began, swirling the champagne in his glass, "life's like flying first class. You work hard, you earn your spot, and then you enjoy it. But there's always that one person who sneaks in, someone who doesn't quite belong." Keanu didn't take the bait. He took a sip of his water and responded in his usual measured tone. "Maybe the real question isn't who belongs, but why you think they don't." Aaron frowned, the response catching him off guard. "It's not personal," he said quickly, though the words lacked conviction. "It's just, some spaces are meant for people who've proven themselves." Keanu turned to face him fully for the first time. His expression was still calm, but there was an undeniable firmness in his gaze. "Proven to whom?" Aaron hesitated. The question lingered in the air, heavier than he had expected. Passengers around them who had been subtly listening exchanged glances. Some nodded in quiet agreement with Keanu's words, while others looked at Aaron with barely veiled disapproval. The conversation was interrupted by the flight attendant, who approached Keanu with a polite smile. "Mr. Reeves," she said, her voice carrying a hint of deference, "the captain asked me to let you know that your connection in Tokyo is confirmed. He also sends his regards and mentioned he's a big fan." For a moment, the cabin seemed to freeze. The name Reeves echoed in Aaron's mind like a thunderclap. He blinked, his thoughts racing. The man sitting beside him, the one he had been mocking and belittling, was Keanu Reeves, a global icon, a Hollywood legend, and a man known for his kindness and humility. Aaron stammered, his voice barely a whisper. "You're Keanu Reeves?" Keanu gave a small nod, offering a polite smile. "Is something wrong?" Aaron's face flushed. He felt the weight of the passengers' eyes on him. Some were murmuring to one another, and a few had pulled out their phones, discreetly snapping pictures of the star. Aaron looked down at his hands, his mind a whirl of embarrassment and regret. For the rest of the flight, Aaron sat in silence, his champagne untouched. He replayed every word he had said to Keanu, each comment now feeling more foolish than the last. He had spent the entire journey trying to belittle a man who was far more accomplished than he could ever dream of being. But it wasn't Keanu's fame or wealth that stung the most. It was his unshakable humility and the way he carried himself with grace despite Aaron's provocations. After what felt like an eternity, Aaron finally mustered the courage to speak. "Mr. Reeves," he began, his voice low, I owe you an apology." Keanu turned to him, his expression kind but unreadable. "For what?" "For everything," Aaron said, his words tumbling out in a rush. "For judging you, for thinking, for assuming you didn't belong here. I was arrogant, and I'm sorry." Keanu studied him for a moment, then gave a small nod. "I appreciate the apology, but it's not me you need to reflect on. It's yourself. Why did you feel the need to judge in the first place?" Aaron swallowed hard, the question cutting deeper than he expected. "I guess I've always felt like I needed to prove something, to show that I've made it." Keanu leaned back in his seat, his gaze thoughtful. "We all feel that way sometimes. But real success doesn't need to be proven, it speaks for itself. The things that truly matter can't be measured by what seat you're in or what glass you're holding. They're measured by how you treat the people around you." Aaron nodded, the words settling into his mind. "You're right," he said quietly. "I've spent so much time trying to climb higher that I forgot to look at the people around me." Keanu smiled. "It's never too late to change." As the plane began its descent into Los Angeles, Aaron felt a strange mix of shame and relief. Shame for the way he had behaved, but relief that the encounter had opened his eyes. For years, he had measured his worth by his possessions, his title, and his status. But in a few hours, a man he had dismissed as ordinary had shown him the emptiness of that perspective. After disembarking, Aaron stood in the terminal, watching Keanu from a distance. Despite his disguise, fans had recognized him, and a small group had gathered around, asking for photos and autographs. Keanu greeted each one with patience and warmth, his demeanor unhurried and genuine. There was no arrogance, no sense of entitlement, just a man treating others with kindness. Aaron felt a lump rise in his throat. For the first time in years, he questioned everything he had built his life around. What did it mean to truly succeed? Was it about climbing higher, or was it about lifting others as you climbed? Summoning his courage, Aaron approached Keanu one last time. "Thank you," he said, his voice trembling slightly. "Not just for your patience, but for the lesson. I won't forget it." Keanu gave him a warm smile. "Take care, Aaron. Remember, the way you treat others is the real mark you leave behind." As Keanu walked away, disappearing into the crowd, Aaron stood still, his thoughts swirling. He knew this encounter wasn't an accident. It was a chance to change, to become the kind of person he had once admired but lost sight of in his pursuit of success. Aaron was left reflecting on the lesson he had learned. True success isn't about status or wealth. It's about the positive impact we have on others. Keanu's humility and kindness served as a powerful reminder that respect and humanity never go out of style. As the terminal buzzed with activity around him, Aaron made a silent vow to change, not for the sake of appearances, but because it was the right thing to do. What are your thoughts on Keanu's calm humility compared to Aaron's arrogance and need for validation? Have you ever had a moment that changed your view of success? Share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear from you. Thank you for watching. If this story inspired you, please like the video and subscribe for more uplifting content. We'll see you next time.